I don't know if you guys have heard of this guy called Boneface, but Laura Loomer, who's a two-time Republican congressional candidate who denied losing twice and disputed the results of the election where she clearly lost because Trump has just made that the fashionable thing to do these days, is just to be a sore loser. But that before that, she was also a conservative political activist, if we're gonna call her that. I don't want to get into all of her history. You might know her from calling in during the Kanye West interview and trying to, justify him saying Hitler was like a cool dude. You might also know her from handcuffing herself to Twitter HQ after she was banned for saying that there should be non-Muslim driving services. And then she compared it to the Holocaust and like put a Star of David on her and saying she was getting persecuted because she was Jewish and handcuffed herself to Twitter HQ. Problem is, she only handcuffed herself to one of the doors, so the employees just kind of went around and just opened the other door. Anyway, Laura Loomer is consistently making a fool of herself, but through her tomfoolery and her dumb fuckery, she has been able to gather an audience, because apparently amongst some in the conservative base, there is a big audience for dumb fuckery. Anyway, she has been yelling from the rooftops about a breaking story, a breaking news, amazing thing that she's discovered that the mainstream media is ignoring, and that is Boneface. So recently, while in Florida, there was this like Goyim Defense League and one other like neo-Nazi organization that did an event, and they got a bunch of neo-Nazis together to go around and just like yell slurs at random people, because that's the Nazi version of direct action, is just going out in public and calling people slurs, right? Oh, and of course beating people up. But in this case, they didn't do the second one, they just did the first one. They went out in public and yelled slurs. And she went and she found this guy called Boneface, this guy here, who then proceeded to tell her a very tall tale about how he served in the Ukrainian military. And not only did he serve in the Ukrainian military, but he served with Azov right sector and even fought in the famous battle of 2022, the Battle of Mariupol. Oh my goodness, that is pretty crazy. He said, I've committed war crimes over there. He said that he's a big hero over there. Slava Ukraini, hail Azov, yada yada. And that's what he was yelling at the event. This is what she tweeted out after doing that. Now, she has put out a lot of content on this, and this isn't the only thing she put out a bunch of theories about. She also put out a theory recently that Ukraine was actually maybe behind January 6th and they were penetrating the Capitol and committed an act of war. There's so much nonsense she's putting out. I'm just trying to concentrate on one thing and do a thorough job on this. So I'm going to concentrate on this. Let's read through her scoop and then talk about the evidence she provided. As she calls herself as a journalist, I'm sure, it says it right there in her bio, investigative journalist, founder of Loomered. She's loomering the mainstream media here. Let's see the case she puts forward. Scoop. One of the Nazis who I caught on camera yesterday at the Nazi rally in Almonte Springs, Florida, has been working with the CIA by his own admission to help recruit Nazis to fight in Ukraine, where he himself fought alongside Right Sector and Azov Battalion. It's weird that she says Azov Battalion, so the Azov, whatever. With help from the CIA. The Nazi rally in Florida yesterday is directly tied to the CIA and FBI, and law enforcement sources have told me FBI agents were undercover at the rally. Here's another video of the Nazi Kent Boneface McCullen saying the CIA helped him get to Ukraine years ago to fight alongside Right Sector, a Ukrainian neo-Nazi group that was propped up by the CIA in an effort to combat Russia. He was one of the Nazis I spotted yesterday in Almonte Springs, Florida, where he was waving a swastika flag, doing Roman salutes and saying Hail Hitler, and shouting anti-Jewish slurs at me alongside his fellow Nazi friends. Damn, only if he released a hot album like Kanye West did, then if he would have said that, she would have said, oh, that's okay, that's fine. He was arrested by the FBI in Florida in 2012 for planning what they called an act of domestic terrorism against minorities. He also reportedly served time in prison for physically assaulting and beating immigrants. 2 years after he was arrested and detained by the FBI, he was placed in touch with the CIA, who helped him travel to Ukraine in 2014. Now, just look here. She's stating this as fact. She's stating this as fact. Just remember that. He obtained a Ukrainian passport in 2022. Again, she's stating this is fact. Remember that. And this is a paper trail. This is stuff you could get evidence of. How is he walking the streets of Florida? Is he still working with the CIA and FBI? Also, why is Ron DeSantis allowing for the CIA to plant Nazis all over Florida and staged appearances, which are then used by the media to falsely accuse right-wingers of being Nazis? This guy is a Democrat deep state operative who is on video admitting that the CIA helped him to get to Ukraine and join a Nazi militia. Here is I don't know if we're going to play the whole video. I don't think we are, but we'll play a moment of it. Oh, never mind. It's in Russian. We don't need to. But what she said here is what he claims. He claims Azov, right sector, the whole thing. But notice that this is from a Russian source, which we'll come back to. Boneface, I am not really scared of you. I drew you out into the public as a Nazi CIA asset, and you have only just confirmed what I reported. You are a felon. You were arrested for domestic terrorism in Florida in 2012, and you were picked by the CIA in 2014 to join Right Sector. Felons can't get licenses to use ham radios. The only way you were able to get away with your actions that you were broadcasting publicly now on Twitter in an effort to threaten me is if you're protected as an intelligence asset. I know all about how the CIA made a deal with you to gather intelligence in Ukraine against the Russians. And now they are using you and your brother to recruit more Nazis to fight in Ukraine. I am not scared of you. You are a Nazi CIA asset, and you should be in prison. At CIA, at FBI, is enabling Nazi assets to threaten Jewish investigative journalists and incite violence domestically and internationally. This is a major scandal I have uncovered, and the media needs to report on this. At Joe Biden's administration is working with and funding Nazis and Ukrainian spies to create a color revolution in the United States and interfere in U.S. elections. This is the clip.
We got visual on Loomer. Over.
Okay. And there's more. Exclusive Laura Loomer investigation. I have conducted an investigation, and I believe for the sake of national security, public interest, and now my own personal safety. She's in danger. The Ukrainians are gonna kill her. I need to immediately release and publish what I have uncovered about the United States government involvement in recruiting violent American Nazis, white supremacists, and domestic terrorists, and turning them into mercenaries and confidential informants to fight against Russians and kill civilians. Upon their return to the United States, some of these Nazis are now engaging in perpetuating hate crimes and other felonies in the U.S., and they appear to be protected by our government from serving prison time, have received delayed prison time, and even reduced prison time. As many of you saw this weekend, I stumbled upon a Nazi rally in Florida when I encountered 50 swastika flags waving Nazis affiliated with Blood Tribe, and Goyim Defense League. One of the individuals in attendance, Jesus fucking Christ, there's so much. Oh God, I'm just gonna try to get through this as fast as possible. One of the individuals in attendance, who I filmed at this rally in 9/2/23, is a U.S. citizen, a Nazi named Kent Boneface McClellan. At this rally, he was sick-hailing while screaming Slava Ukraini. His entire body and face was covered in tattoos, including many Nazi tattoos. As I have exposed, he is a Nazi who has traveled abroad. I like that she says she exposed that he's a Nazi, when he has like a gigantic swastika tattoo on his chest that he's taken pictures of and posted publicly, and he's at a Nazi rally. Like, I've exposed Donald Trump as a Republican. Oh, really? One of the individuals in attendance who I filmed at this rally was Boneface. At the rally, he was sick-hailing and saying Slava Ukraini. His whole entire body and face is covered in tattoos, including many Nazi tattoos. As I have exposed, he is a Nazi who has traveled abroad to Ukraine to fight in the Ukraine-Russia war. He's an American citizen who was recently given Ukrainian citizenship. I have overwhelming evidence. There it is. Overwhelming evidence. Remember that. The Nazis who are being backed by our government have not only murdered civilians overseas, but they have been engaged in war crimes. In the case of Kent Boneface McClellan, who resides in Florida, he is a Nazi, a domestic terrorist, and a violent felon who was arrested in Florida in 2012 by the FBI. He was also put on a U.S. terror watch list. And then in 2014, he was recruited by the CIA, and the DOD reportedly paid for him to travel to Ukraine in 2014 to join Right Sector, and then the Nazi Azov Battalion in 2022, which are taxpayer. You know why it's Azov in 2022? I'm going to get into this in a moment. It's because nobody knows Right Sector anymore, and everyone now knows Azov. So now it used to be Right Sector, now it's Azov. Anyway, continuing. Which our taxpayer dollars are now unfortunately funding. Upon his return to the U.S. circa 2022, I've discovered via investigation that McCullough received a U.S. Army Expeditionary Medal for his services in Ukraine. My investigation has uncovered social media posts he posted in which he posed for pictures in Ukraine wearing an Azov Battalion uniform next to the dead body of a civilian. The image, which I sent to a forensic analysis for verification, has been authenticated. Oh my God, it has? Must have been a really good authentication process if she believes it. Why is Joe Biden regime funding Nazi death squads in Ukraine with U.S. taxpayer dollars? I received a phone call from Camp Boneface at 1 a.m. last night after he leaked my personal cell phone number to him. And after he said, we have a visual on Loomer on ham radio. He is not licensed to operate. He published that video to his Twitter account and tagged me. During the phone call I had with McClellan, he gave me confessions of various crimes. Here is the evidence of what our U.S. government is doing in Ukraine. These are war crimes. I have responsibility to share this damning information I have uncovered with the world. And then she posts a bunch of pictures of McClellan and all of this evidence she has gathered of him in Ukraine committing war crimes, and all these evidence of him being a Ukrainian war criminal. Problem is, basically every single image in this is photoshopped, and none of this proves he's in Ukraine. For example, the picture that shows that he's a war criminal right there, where she tries to match his lip tattoo with that tattoo, it's edited. And Ethan Ralph, of all people, was one of the people to point this out. Here's the real original photograph. She sent this for verification. If Ethan Ralph can figure it out, then there's something wrong with you. If Ethan Ralph got the W over you on this. And this isn't the only photo that was photoshopped. Look at this. You take a single glance at this photo, and you can tell it's photoshopped. You can see it. You can see the discoloration. You can see the blurriness. It's clearly photoshopped. I don't even know why it's photoshopped. He has like a background that's like just bland. It's plain. It's not like he's showing classified like locations. And all of his photos of him in uniform are at locations like this. Nothing where we can actually confirm he's in Ukraine. He's not next to any Ukrainian national landmark. And everything that is vaguely looks like he could have been in Ukraine, like the one we just showed you, was Photoshop. She sent this to get verified? Who did she get this verified by? Who did she get this verified by? She rolled up, looked at his YouTube channel, and saw this, and thought, I don't need to do any fact checking. I'll just take him at his word.
Boneface, bitch. You missed me. You thought I was dead by now. Well, guess what? Fat and still fucking alive. Pretty soon, a couple more days, do 1 more year, slipping out alive. And I'm 5. Ha. You would never thought what it's in the day. A free man, Boneface, rocking my way. Doing this thing as a presidency. But I just gotta tell you, this man's a matter of course. Don't talk, cause your back will get your head sunk right out of course.
Now, I could like go through all the details of like why this story is bogus and why Laura Loomer lies. For example, he says he fought in the Battle of Mariupol. There's no way he fought in the Battle of Mariupol. You want to know why? If he did, he would either A, be dead because he has no military experience. That's another thing that's quite interesting about this. He has none. But if he wasn't, he would have been captured by the Russians. But he wasn't captured by the Russians. But then Boneface defenders, can't believe they exist, but they do exist, would come out and say, well, he would have gone at one of the evacuation helicopter flights. Bullshit. Number one, everybody that got evacuated was injured. And he doesn't show any injuries that I know of. He hasn't shown any evidence of injuries. And number two, all the people who manage evacuation that has commented on this has said they have no clue who he is and they've never met him. And there have been a few people who are managing the evacuation in Mariupol who said they have no clue who this guy is. There's no evidence that he's ever been in Ukraine. She doesn't have evidence of his passport. She doesn't have evidence that he's joined Right Sector or joined Azov, and certainly doesn't have evidence that the CIA recruited him. She heard this street thug neo-Nazi who's a common street criminal who's been arrested multiple times and is an attention-seeking freak, as you can see from his tattoos, and then gave him attention, and big surprise, he span a big yawn. You want to know another piece of evidence that I thought was really baffling, and any amount of digging would have found this up? Definitely, she was saying, she was looking at his criminal record. During the Battle of Mariupol, he was in jail. The battle he said he took part in, he was getting booked in Florida. He was in jail. I don't know how he was in jail and also on the front lines of the war in Ukraine at the same time. That's quite impressive Azov Banderite magic. I've never seen that before. I guess Laura Loomer, she's just waiting to explain how he's mastered teleportation. I don't know what else to say about this. I'm not the first person to call out all this nonsense. Vice has called it out before. In fact, Laura Loomer has actually dug in her heels and stayed solid on this, as in, isn't moving her position, while the Nazis who associated with Boneface, are now coming out with apologies for hyping him up. Look at this. Look at this. The Nazis are distancing themselves from this guy and saying, okay, never mind, he's a fraudster, while Laura Loomer's still running this tall tale. Here's one of them. Here's one of the Nazis. Folanis, this is one of the Nazis that were at the rally, one of the weekend's main organizers, left several voice memos where he explained to his upset fans he was sorry for the lack of vetting that occurred with McClellan and that he was taken in by the Boneface hype. I want to say sorry to whoever thinks we dropped the ball on this or whatever. We aren't the only ones. Everyone was fucking into Boneface. Boneface was hype for a while. That's why we told him not to wear a mask. There were a lot of Boneface hype. Wow. Why is it that everybody that tries to undercut aid for Ukraine and try to paint Ukraine in this way have to rely on just like the most obvious lies in the world? And the crazy thing is, she spread this shit to tens of millions of people and nobody said anything that she responded to. She had no like response to like the people calling out her stuff. She just pretended none of the responses happened. She got to spread all this misinformation. A ton of people online bought it. I even think I saw Nuance Bro liking some of the tweets associated with this shit. And now she's going to move on as if nothing's happened, even though she obviously lied, has been called out, and proven false. What a huckster. But that's perfect for Trump's Republican Party.